Welcome to the Doherty Water for Food podcast. Since 2010, the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute at the University of Nebraska has worked toward one goal, a food and water secure world. One in which global food security is ensured without compromising the use of water to meet other essential human and environmental needs. It's a daunting vision, but one that is vitally important. This podcast amplifies the voices of those making waves in this space. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Hi, my name is Arianna Elnes. I'm the Communications Specialist at the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute, and I'm here with a few members of our team who just finished a study on the business ecosystem for irrigation in Rwanda, and I'm here to interview them, so I will let them take a moment to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Natacha Akaliza, and I am a program consultant with Doherty Water for Food Global Institute, and I am currently based in Rwanda. I have contributed to the research process and the writing of the report.
Hi, my name is Savant Nzayiramya. I am a senior student here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and an intern at Water for Food with the policy team.
I'm Nick Brozović. I'm Director of Policy at the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute, and I've been involved in this project for a few years.
Could you tell me a little bit about the study and the purpose?
So this project is part of work that we're doing trying to understand how to support smallholder irrigation in sub-Saharan Africa. And the particular focus that we have is looking at the larger entrepreneurial ecosystem. So not just looking at smallholder farmers, but everybody else that works to support smallholder farmers. So that includes the government, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that is, large companies as well as small startups, and in general people that behave in an entrepreneurial fashion. So for this study, our goal was to try to really understand a little bit more about where the kinds of small pumps that smallholders use to irrigate come from and how they get from the factory to the field. What are the key policies that matter to them? What are the key distribution channels? What's working, what isn't working, and where might there be opportunities for future scaling?
Could you please provide some background on the current irrigation industry in Rwanda? So
Rwanda is an interesting place around irrigation at the moment in that there's a fairly large amount of land that could be irrigated, but at the moment very little of it actually is.
Also, there are three types of irrigation systems in Rwanda, one being marshland, hillside, and SSIT. And SSIT was its small-scale irrigation technology that was introduced in 2014 by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rwanda Agriculture Board. That was into place to facilitate farmers who face issues with having access to irrigation because of the high cost.
How did you identify the need for this mapping and analysis?
So over the last decades, the focus of irrigation expansion in sub-Saharan Africa was on the construction of large donor and government-funded canal and reservoir systems. But recently we have seen the focus shifting to smallholder irrigation provision through decentralized, small-scale and entrepreneurial pathways, often described as farmer-led irrigation development or farmer-led irrigation development. So, but as a result, we identified that there is a need in understanding and expanding the full set of pathways by which smallholder farmers access irrigation goods and services. So we started with the understanding of the business ecosystem around smallholder irrigation, hence the ecosystem map.
We've been working in Rwanda on various aspects of irrigation for a few years. And this was really one of the pieces that had come up, and we had questions that we couldn't answer, and other people couldn't answer them for us when we talked to them. So when you look at that irrigation landscape, there's a lot of interest in large irrigation projects, there's a lot of interest in solar irrigation, but both of those miss out this kind of very large part of the landscape that looks at what a lot of the smallholders are currently doing and how they access irrigation, and really basic questions like, well, where do those pumps come from? What countries are the pumps made in, and how do they get out to the farmers?
Could you describe this ecosystem map and who it's intended for and how it will be used?
Ecosystem map is the visual representation of all people and groups that influence the target customer. And for our case, our target customer was the smallholder farmer, not just any smallholder farmer, but the smallholder farmer that irrigate. And our map can be used by, I'll say, two different groups of people, one being entrepreneurs who want to understand the irrigation ecosystem in Rwanda, and also who want to know the suppliers, the investors, the donors, and all the people that are involved, as well as the potential customer, who are the smallholder irrigation farmers who irrigate.
So the main goal of the ecosystem map is to show all the key players surrounding farmers and their role in the business ecosystem that is involved with supporting irrigated agriculture.
I'm a visual learner. Many of the fellow team members are also visual learners. And so it's a very nice way of helping us understand what does that larger landscape look like. In terms of the second part of your question, who can use it? Well, actually, our hope is that everybody will use it. We've used it for our own research and to guide how we think about where our next research is going to go. We hope that some of our partners at places like the World Bank, the International Water Management Institute, or the International Fund for Agricultural Development will also use the map. But we also think there's opportunities for some of the distributors and retailers and entrepreneurs to use the map to understand where there might be gaps or opportunities in their own markets.
What was the process for this analysis?
So the process we used included like a series of structured interviews. These are closely related to the customer discovery process from the entrepreneurship, but we have adapted it to the local context and culture. So we've been talking to many ecosystem participants as possible. These include like business owners, government officials, non-government organization staff, and smallholder farmers. So we've been talking to them to understand their motivations, operations, and day-to-day challenges. We were able to gain a holistic and nuanced understanding of smallholder irrigation as it occurs in Rwanda from this conversation we've been having with them. In addition to that, we also analyzed the different policy documents, scientific and academic reports on agriculture, company marketing materials, and other similar materials.
What were some of your most important key findings?
So one of the key findings is that all the pumps in Rwanda are imported. So we don't have any local manufacturing in Rwanda. So that means we get the pumps from Japan, we get the pump from China, we get some of the pump from Germany. But surprisingly, most of our pump, they go through Dubai, and then from Dubai they come to Rwanda. So that was really interesting getting to learn about the whole process, where they came from and how they get to Rwanda. So one of the other key findings is the role of the sector and district agronomists, as well as society engineers, because they play a big role in helping the farmers in Rwanda by mobilizing and telling them about the process and helping them to get a pump and giving them recommendations.
The study highlighted how important government agronomists are in the irrigation ecosystem. And again, our team has a lot of experience working in irrigation in Rwanda. We have some very, very experienced team members there. So we knew agronomists were important, but we didn't realize really how many functions they served in the landscape. So a lot of the decision around irrigation equipment, which brand to use, how to set up the system, falls to the agronomist. But they also have a very large advocacy role in that some of the agronomists spend a lot of time helping the farmers in their districts access finance, helping them to get loans or connect to non-governmental organizations. And so they're really, in a sense, their key influences, and the importance of their role has been underappreciated to date.
Based on these key findings, what are some of your recommendations for improving the irrigation industry in Rwanda?
Yeah, so for the study, we came out with a couple of recommendations that we think maybe aren't very large lifts. One part is trying to streamline the process for permitting to be able to access the subsidy program. So right now that involves a number of different agencies and a lot of paper record keeping. And sometimes when farmers need to access irrigation equipment, particularly if it's in the middle of the growing season, it just takes them too long to get through that paperwork. And so one of the recommendations is that there's opportunities to try to streamline that process, move possibly to an online or pre-authorization system to try to get farmers access to those subsidies quicker and more easily. Another recommendation that we had is to do with the ways that the retailers are able to access the subsidy system. In that at the moment, that's actually quite a complicated process and it's quite expensive. And so there are good reasons for it, but essentially younger entrepreneurs and smaller retailers are essentially prevented from working as part of the government subsidy program.
So for the retailers, I'd recommend having the local manufacturing in Rwanda, or at least having the repairing shops in Rwanda, because there's only a few or limited number of people who does the retail. So that would be good to have places where farmers can repair their pump. And for the non-governmental organization or other organizations, I think it would be really good to have to give the financial support to the farmers who can afford to pay the 50% of the pump price.
What did you learn that was surprising or that you weren't expecting to find?
The influence that agronomists have in influencing farmers to get the pump. I think that is surprising because, if the agronomist is not interested, then that means that region is not going to be interested as well. So, you can see how one person's influence can go way long and improve food security, for example. Yet it's on a lower level, but how it could go a long way if most agronomists were very interested in irrigation.
Can you tell me a little bit about something that was the most interesting?
So one of the most interesting things was having to talk to the farmers in my local language and simply having to apply the skills and the knowledge that I learned from the team and from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, doing the research that impacts the lives of the people.
I'll say that one of the things that I found that was most rewarding is that our team functioned exceptionally well through the COVID disruption. We're fortunate that we have a team on the ground in Rwanda that at times were able to go into the field. We also have a research team in the US that we're able to coordinate with them as well as doing additional research from the field. I'll share one anecdote that I found both surprising and rewarding. It's actually an anecdote about Savant, which is he's particularly interested in international trade and industrial organization. And one of the challenges for us was figuring out pricing strategies for retailers and figuring out how retailers operate within government policy to set prices. And that was research that was frankly really, really difficult, and it was hard to find data and things weren't going where they needed to go. And at one point, Savant, I guess, had a creative insight and went into an equipment shop here in Lincoln in Nebraska and started asking really detailed questions about irrigation equipment and pumps and pricing and features and specifications, because in fact it's a global supply chain, and so some of the same pumps could be found right here in Lincoln as they are in Rwanda. And that was a fantastic set of insights that he got from that interaction. But in terms of the kind of spirit that we encourage, the kind of learning process that we encourage, that was, as I said, both surprising and rewarding.
How do you hope this analysis will be used?
So obviously we're optimists. What does success look like? Well, we hope that the government looks at the study and makes some of the simpler changes that we recommend, and that then leads to increased rollout in irrigation. We hope that some budding entrepreneurs see the work and get excited about working in irrigation and either set up for themselves or reach out to us and learn more from us. We hope that we can take the methods and the tools that we've applied and learned, and as part of that process we've developed playbooks for how we can do the same kinds of analyses elsewhere in other similar countries. Our expectation is that every country is different, and so the analysis is going to give different results everywhere we go. So we're excited for us to do some of that, and we hope that other people will do some of those studies too.
Personally, I hope that it becomes a daily tool or reference point for entrepreneurs and other people who are very interested in the irrigation ecosystem within Rwanda, and maybe also adapt this tool to other countries, use the same method but adapt it to the cultural context of other countries. This would really also I would say speed up the process, the process of increasing the irrigated area, or also provide the knowledge of where should I go if I want to invest in agriculture, for example. So this would act as a tool to guide you, literally a map to guide anyone who is interested in agriculture to be able to reach to their destination, honestly. So I hope that it be used as a daily tool or reference point.
How does the advancement of the irrigation industry contribute to food and water security in Rwanda?
The advancement of irrigation industry in Rwanda would help farmers to not rely on rainfall, given also the current climate change and such challenges. If irrigation is advanced, it would help farmers to not produce because they are waiting for the rain, to not plant because they are waiting for the rain. And if all the seasons are also tapped in, then it would help Rwanda produce all year round. It would help Rwanda to increase the yield. So if we imported some of a certain specific crop because we don't produce enough, then if we are producing all year round, then that amount of yield increases, which help us also not rely on imported food. And increased yield means that people especially farmers are not farming to survive. They have enough to also provide to the market. Therefore, being able to get enough food for themselves, for their families, but as well make some money from what they are producing.
On the water security side, we have to be a little bit careful because certainly when you have large-scale irrigation, it is possible that you can run into complications around the other uses of water, whether those are environmental or for drinking water or public health. Now, in Rwanda, Rwanda generally has lots of water, both surface water and groundwater. In most of the areas that we work, there is more than sufficient water to irrigate sustainably, and the issue is more around providing the technology to access that water to farmers. However, that doesn't mean that you don't have to still keep track on overall what's happening at a landscape scale, at the water quality impacts, and so on. And so that's a piece that, at the Institute, we always have to have that in the back of our minds, is that, as this happens, is there a trade-off with landscape scale water security and other impacts that might be happening?
What were some of the challenges in this study, and how did you work to overcome them?
So one is that we did this research during COVID, and for me, going back to Rwanda and having to get access to traveling and things like that was really hard.
So working during COVID, of course, as for all of us, has been a challenge. Our team in Rwanda, in a sense, were doubly challenged. Sometimes they were able to go out into the field, sometimes they weren't. They were also asking questions that were sometimes culturally very difficult to ask. They were asking questions about pricing strategies, and they were asking questions about the difference between the intent of a policy and the actuality of a policy on the ground and how it's actually implemented. And often there's a really big difference there, and that's for me, it's one of the joys of doing policy work, is there's a huge difference between how policy is written and how it's executed. But it's often really a challenge to go out and be able to talk in a straightforward way with people and get answers and responses that are both meaningful and appropriate in that context.
So before we started, I personally had never done a discovery interview. So that was a challenge, because as much as I knew what the information I had to get from the people that I was interviewing, I did not know the approach of to get the most out of this interview. So it was really challenges. It was really challenging for me personally, but I think for that to overcome it, you just need to continue doing it. You get a handle of what am I doing wrong, what am I doing right, and basically improve on that. After 2 or 3 interviews, you start getting used to the process and understand also the people, understand people better, people who you are interviewing. What do you say to get the most out of the interview? Just not checking the list was really helpful for me. Also, I think it was challenging for us as a team, because when we contacted people for these interviews, you would find them having expectations around us giving them money. So it's like selling the information basically, which was really tough, navigating that. But I think one way that we overcame that was having the person that we have interviewed connect us to other people. That was helpful, because if this is a farmer who is connecting us to the other farmer, then we go as we're having the same conversation we had with other person, but also communicate before the conversation that we are not giving out, that we're not sponsors. We just want to have money. And because we also are Rwandans, it made it easier because we're speaking in their language. So that's how we literally overcame the expectation and still get the most information from the people that we're interviewing.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
So I'd like to thank the Institute for giving me a chance as an intern to work on this project, and the whole team that helped me personally when I was in Rwanda and during other part of the writing process and everything else that we did. And also, I'd like to say that we also have so many things coming up from the Rwandan team. So just look for those things, look for many publications to come, and yeah, that's it.
I want to thank you all for being here today and taking the time to interview. I also want to thank and acknowledge that this work was funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute. Thank you all for listening, and any of our listeners who are interested in learning more about this study can find more information on the Water for Food website.
Thanks for joining us this time on the Doherty Water for Food podcast. Make sure to visit our website, waterforfood.nebraska.edu, to view show notes or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.